Hello and welcome to the Ward Museum. I'm KRISTIN Sullivan, the Executive Director here at the Ward Museum of Wildfowl Art, Salisbury University. Welcome to the Henry A. Fleckenstein Jr. Decoy Study Gallery. This is the first of a series of gallery tours that we're going to be doing. Since we're closed to the public, we wanted to find a way to still let you all in to enjoy the beautiful wildfowl art we have at the museum. So what better place to start than with historical antique decoys? These are some of the birds that were made by guys to go out actually into the marsh, into the bay, to hunt, to bring food into their family. But they're also beautiful pieces of artwork. So we are going to walk you through, not really me, Rich Smoker, the chairman of our board of directors here, an NEA National Heritage Fellow, will be walking us through different regions of the country to show different makers, different styles, different materials, and along the way sort of reveal how the natural environment influenced the birds, how the different materials available influence the evolution of the art form, and so forth. So I hope you all enjoy this first of our series of tours, and I'm going to turn it over to Rich.
Greetings. Welcome to the Henry Fleckenstein Decoy Gallery. Fantastic array of birds here. If you like a lot of us, you need a decoy fix right now. And that's what we're doing at the moment, walking through the cases, looking at some birds that are in here. Being that right now we cannot get together for the World Championships, we started with our Louisiana collection that we have. And the first one that really popped to mind is a bird by JIMMIE VIZIER, very on the very bottom from GALLIANO, Louisiana. Jimmie is one of our longtime competitors, and we miss him dearly. He has passed on, and but not forgotten, or never will be forgotten. But then you end up, in this case too, with decoys that are done by some of his relatives. We have O.D. VIZIER, a pintail on the top. We have Clovis VIZIER. And we also have Beauregard VIZIER, a mallard over here. Louisiana decoys are easily recognized by the small size and stature of each one for being hauled to the hunting area in a pirogue. And most of them have been chopped out of either tupelo or cypress root. Very nice and light and very easily managed decoys. Very pretty and very stylish. Each maker had his own idea of what the bird should look like. One of my favorites is the Xavier Borg. Really enjoy looking at those little blue-winged teal of his. Of course, one of the elder statesmen in the whole Louisiana collection too is Mark Whipple. We have a bunch of birds in here now from Illinois River. There's a nice pair of homes right here. You can tell the beautiful shapes of the bottoms of these birds were done for a river that flows on the Mississippi. How they're V'd at the bottom so that they're chimed in very hard so that they will stay there on the water themselves. And they used a lot of scratch painting, comb painting on the backs of these birds, which really set them off from different areas. Back when a lot of these birds were done, they used to use them in the spring too, for obvious reasons, for birds to came back north and they were hunted that way. For those of you who do a lot of reading with decoy magazines, there's a Bob Ellison right here that there's a beautiful tutorial on Ellison decoys in Decoy magazine last month. And there's one to be looked at right there. Judge Cameron, of course, beautiful canvasback drake. Again, with the hard chime on the bottoms. Those are just outstanding. One of the contemporaries that we see a lot of, Heck Whittington. And here's a nice pintail who Heck did, and also an earlier bluebill alongside of it that were both used on the Illinois River. It's interesting birds, and Heck had done a lot of those birds already. Of course, you can never forget on the bottom case, on the bottom is the Charles Perdue. Never forget a Charles Perdue. And now you've got a crow in there. They're hard to find, but it's just an outstanding piece of work. One of my favorites too is the Perry Wilcoxon, right alongside of it, the CANVASBACK, nice and broad so it would sit up and shape. The painting on it is just outstanding with the scalloped edges which mirror the Mason decoys of the time. We got some more Heck Whittingtons over here, which I think are beautiful. We have a widgeon, and that is just, you know, an outstanding piece of work. And you can see the toolage from Shane Wheeler in Heck Whittington's paintwork and his overall shapes. Heck Whittington wrote to Shane Wheeler and asked about you know, a number of different things, and Shane was able to help him. And you can see, you know, the paint work on that bird and also the shape. It looks just like a Connecticut bird, but it was done, you know, in Oglesby, Illinois. We also have another on the bottom, another Bob Ellison, nice wide bird. That him and the family, his wife, Catherine, I believe it was, who was a painter. She painted the birds, a lot of scratch painting on the bird. It was their cottage industry. They did a lot of work with that. What's interesting too is alongside of it is you have some Armstrong featherweight decoys, and they were from Texas. We have a pair of mallards, and we also have a pair of pintails. The beautiful looking things, and they were canvas stuffed with straw put together that way. I don't know how well they floated, but you find some of them. But finding them in original condition is pretty hard to do, considering it's fiber, and it's also you know, natural materials of grass and such. Nate Quillen is one of the top carvers from Michigan, and finding Nate Quillen decoy is a tough thing to do, especially in something that has paint on it like that. A nice little bird. But one of my favorites too, one of the favorite carvers that I ever had was Ben Schmidt. Ben Schmidt, first decoy book I ever was given was 1967 or 68, I think. My mom and dad gave it to me for Christmas, and the first carver that I ever saw in there working was Ben Schmidt, and he automatically became a favorite of mine. You can see on the back there's U's to suggest the feathers, and those were stamps. He had a metal stamp that he would put on there and pound it with a hammer, and would make the outline of a feather, and then he would paint to it. Something of an interesting sort of thing. I'm not sure how effective it was, you know, in deadening the surface of the paint, but it certainly looked good, and it shows up a lot once it's worn down a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, when you're dealing with Michigan and that Central Flyway, of course you're going to be dealing with Mason decoys, and what a fantastic company. From the 1890s all the way up through the turn of the century, the 1900s, Masons produced decoys. And one of the oddest ones and hardest ones to find is this, this golden plover, split tail. It has a split tail that was cut in like that. And this one's been overpainted, of course, but finding one in original paint is a real challenge. This is, you run into Mississippi birds that traverse the whole country for that matter. This is Pascagoula, Mississippi. They moved the lathes from Mason decoys down to Pascagoula because they had an outstanding assortment of woods down there, mostly all tupelo and some cypress, and they used all the woods down there to make decoys from the Pascagoula, Mississippi decoy company. And also it ended up with Victor Animal Trap down there, the same thing. Now this one is different because all the lathe marks have been cut off of it, and it's been sanded down, and somebody's come back over and painted it and used a comb on it to put a lot of the feather edgings on it. But alongside of it is the top of the line, a premier grade Mason redhead, which is really hard to find, a good redhead. They just didn't produce a lot because redheads would be easily decoyed by bluebills and canvasback decoys, which were so much more prevalent back then. We have more redheads here on the East Coast than down through the Gulf South than they had in Illinois. Then we have a Harold Hartel, who was a contemporary carver, also an ornithologist. And you can tell by the way he has organized his birds and made them. You find a lot of Harold Hartels. He did a lot of grebes, and it's a little rare to find a gadwall. But right there's one in the case. And like I said, we're getting our decoy fixed today, which is what we want. This canvasback here kind of epitomizes Michigan decoys for me, with a lot of the, you run into a number of makers, Ralph Regai, oh geez, they slipped my mind at the moment, they'll come back. But you find them a lot with bobtails. They didn't have any tails on them at all, trying to show that the tail was under the water or on top of the water. It made it easier to float with it. They don't have to cut in the tail, they save wood, and you know, they made them up that way. And you run into quite a few of them, which is, I think, a beautiful sort of thing. It's really stylish and had to be very serviceable and had to float well. Of course, then we have more Masons, and that's listed as 1920, which would have been at the very end of Mason's career, before they locked up the doors and moved out and sold the lathes and everything.